Howdy. Today I'm continuing with refinishing a stock on it's actually a custom made stock for a Winchester, probably from the mid 60s, and I'm putting a new pad on it. The old pad was a really old herder's pad. You can tell how old it is by the flathead screws in there, and it's real brittle. It's just it's lost its springiness. It fit pretty well when it was on there, but it's pretty much outlived its usefulness. So I got a new Pockmeyer. It's a 1/2 inch thick decelerator rubber, but it's not a super soft one. It's got a hard back and hard or medium rubber there. I put it on here and it rocks. You gotta check these things every now and then. Even though Pockmeyer is my favorite brand of pad and all that, you can see this little mold mark. It's sticking up. So sometimes you have to adjust something even if it's new. So what I'm going to do is just buff out the middle of this. I just took out the middle of it, and was careful to stay away from the edges because I want those edges to stay nice and tight. So we'll see how it fits now. There's still a little tiny rock. I'm going to buff the inside of this wood surface down a little bit as well. It's got a little hump right around that top screw. Not sure if the screw pushed it out. I'm not exactly sure. There's a little bit of a hump there. Before I do that, I'm going to fill those screw holes up, because these are smaller diameter screws than what those other ones were. And I'm going to go ahead and just fill that full of epoxy and a matchstick. I believe I'm going to use super glue and a matchstick instead of epoxy. Either one of them will work just fine. Super glue will dry a little faster. Just keep putting it in until it won't go anymore. Wipe the excess off. Just about that quickly, it's going to dry. What I'm using is just a piece of walnut wood that I cut on a bandsaw. It's got rough edges. That's fine. It'll grip better as it goes in. And it's just about the size of a matchstick or bigger, however big the hole is. I just leave the edges square. That leaves room for the glue to come out on the square sides, the flat sides. And just take it in and take it in and take it in until it won't go anymore. You can feel it when it bottoms out. It sounds different. It'll have a different tone to it. And I'm careful not to cut it off too close to this. screw up that flat surface there. And then I'm going to buff out the middle. The thing's still got a little tiny hump right in the middle of it. It must have had a pretty good hump in it before I started. I didn't even check it. I should have. As much of a hump as that had, I need to check these outer edges where I've not buffed it. It's got a hump right there. That's really close. Pads don't come with a hole in the face. They come with a hole in the back. So what you do is you center up a punch right in the middle of that hole and poke it through there. When you pull it back out, it'll leave a little ring. You can see that little bit of a depression ring right there. And you take a razor blade, one of these single edge razor blades, and just cut you a little bitty slit, about that deep, just enough to make a nice little vertical cut in there. Then you take a little spot of oil and put on that little cut, just a drop. Then you take your screw and push it through with that oil, and that way you don't tear up the metal. The oil will wash off very easily later with mineral spirits. And that's how you cut through that without tearing that up. Now I'm going to measure the center to center between these two holes. You can measure center to center, or you can measure bottom to bottom. It's the same thing. Top to top, same thing. So bottom to bottom is 3 and a light eighth of an inch. And this top hole from the top of the pad to the center is a light 7/8. So I'm going to make this about 15/16. I got plenty to trim off. I'm sorry. I'm a little dyslexic sometimes. I'm going to make that hole 13/16. 13/16 from the top. And I'll try to find the very dead middle of this thing. Those holes that were there were off center. And that's real close to the middle. So 13/16 from the top. And that'll let that thing stick up a 1/16. And then 3 1/8 from there down. That's right on the edge of that matchstick. It's going to be a little tough to drill that one exactly where I want to. What I'm going to do is drill a smaller hole than I need. Usually these Pockmeyers, 1/8 of an inch is the right size for a pilot hole for these screws that come with them. I'm going to start out with a smaller bit. The reason I'm going to do that is because if you're drilling it the exact size you need and you get off a little, you got no wiggle room to come back and adjust that. Whereas if you got a smaller bit, you can come back and apply pressure to this side or that side and make it go where it's supposed to go. Drilling super glue that's not quite cured stinks a little bit. I think both of those holes ended up where I really wanted them to be. That's 13/16 dead nuts, and that's 3 1/8. Straight up. Now I'll go back in with the right size 1/8 inch pilot hole. What I do to tap those threads, I've got a screw that's the same size threads as what comes with Pockmeyers, and it's got wax. It's got wax coating on the threads. I run that in there just to tap it. You run in there once or twice, kind of quick with that impact driver. It'll heat those threads up. You put that on a block of paraffin, and it'll suck right up in there. It'll melt it and suck it up in the metal. Then when I put the real screws in, I'm not struggling and messing up the heads trying to get the thing in there. It just goes in like it should.